Hello, and thanks for watching. Right before Christmas last year, the throwout bearing in the world's worst Subaru decided it was done. I'm a little behind on filming for the F-150 project, so here's a video on how to pull an FB20 engine from an Impreza. Always start with a battery. Disconnecting it will make sure we don't set off airbags or short out the retool, but we'll also need to remove it to make as much room as possible. Whenever disconnecting a battery, it's always safe to start with a negative cable. There's a lot to disconnect from under the car, so let's start with getting it off the ground. Near the rear of the transmission, loosen this bolt on the exhaust and lift it out of its clip. This one can be a little stubborn. I'm not sure why my camera got in the wrong mode here, but there are 3 studs on each cylinder head for the exhaust manifold. Sometimes just the nut will come off, and sometimes the entire stud will unthread. And this is a good time to be wearing safety glasses. There is a 3-bolt flange holding the manifold to the remainder of the exhaust. I've had this off before and broke 2 of the 3 studs. I drilled them out and replaced them with stainless hardware. Remove the last cylinder head nut and gently set the manifold down. It would be better to rest it on a block of wood instead of hanging it off the oxygen sensor wires. Disconnect the two oxygen sensors. A little hard to see, but here I remove the two engine mount nuts. Interesting demonstration here. Extensions can absorb a lot of energy out of an impact tool. Only use them when needed. Now to drain the radiator and try to catch most of it in a pan. If I remember right, I don't think there's a plug. I think I just was removing the bottom radiator hose.
Factory geometry is getting pushed into positions that it was never designed to be. Then we start
This part's probably better done before you make a mess with the radiator, but there are two ground straps from the cylinder heads to the chassis that need to be disconnected. Next, remove the belt guard. There is one bolt and a rubber clip. Okay, when I was working on this, I was starting to watch Ian Roussel's channel. I was really intrigued by his video format, so I tried having my wife record while I narrated. Let me know what you think. Okay, so when you pull the motor, this is a manual transmission, so you have the input shaft from the transmission sticking out, engaging the clutch. So to pull the motor, we're going to have to bring the motor forward to get it off the input shaft. So there's going to be all this, the fans and the radiator and everything in the way. So it's easy to just go ahead, and we've already got the radiator drained. So we'll go ahead and pull the radiator. That'll take the fans with it. We'll leave the air conditioner condenser in place, but we'll put a piece of cardboard over that so we don't pump it. So first, we've already got the lower radiator hose loose. Now just take the upper radiator hose off, and then there's just 2 bolts to hold the top clamps on the radiator on. There's that clamp, and we'll put the bolt back in its hole so we don't have to keep up with it. Okay, so the bolts for my radiator overflow were the tabs were broken off previous owner, so I just zip tied it in place. So I just gotta cut these zip ties, and that's now loose. We'll pull that off. Actually, I guess that could have probably come with the radiator. I didn't have to do all that. Oops. But I think that's everything on the radiator, so the radiator should with a little finagling. Actually, yeah, let's get this out of here. Let's get that radiator the rest of the way out. Yeah, it's stuck on there. Ugh. There's 2 wiring harnesses. I'll look down here. There's a connector for each fan. There it goes. So that's a little thumb tab, but what often happens is when it gets old, the plastic gets hard, and it's hard to get those loose. Okay. And now the radiator comes out.
Ta-da!
I'm going to set it right here for now. Okay, so much room for activities. So now what we're going to do is take the air conditioner off, because I don't want to release the Freon out of these lines. I don't want to pull this with the motor. So what I'll do is take the compressor off and set it over to the side, and I can pull the motor out. It was colder than it looks, and it was a little bit too much for my wife to hang around in the shop all day. So, now on my lonesome, I removed the accessory belt. There are a handful of bolts to hold the compressor down from the top and a few holding it in from the front. And I really wish Subaru would start using anti-sieze. The compressor is tied into a bracket that holds the wires for the alternator, but these need to be disconnected anyway. Move the compressor over to the battery tray, but try to avoid stressing the lines as little as possible. Next, remove the intake hose. Disconnect the power cable and signal wire to the starter. The starter is held by two of the transmission bolts. These are longer than the rest, so keep that in mind when putting back together. One of these was a little stubborn and was actually easier to access from under the car. The starter was a little stuck and took a few light taps to break free. This is a strut that braces the engine to the firewall. Just remove one bolt. Next, remove the two bolts that retain the clutch slave cylinder. Okay, here's the tricky part. Remove the two heater hoses. They're pretty hard to reach, and they're usually pretty stuck from the old coolant. Now, one thing I appreciate on Subarus: disconnect these two large plugs. And that seems to take care of 99% of the wiring you'll have to deal with. Just lift this lever and unplug. The speed sensor plug doesn't need to be disconnected, but it is mounted to the engine, so you will have to pull it off of its bracket. There are only a few vacuum lines to disconnect, including the brake booster line. Now for the tedious process to remove all the transmission bolts. If I remember right, there are 6 up top and 2 studs on the bottom with nuts.
Did you notice when England said this?
Hey, more trustworthy, you or Hopkins?
Like trustable or like trusting of?
I'm going to use the same word, trustworthy. Trustable. It's not crustable. This is where we cut the trust off the edges and we just the not trust. Or trustful.
You can catch up on the podcast anytime.
One bolt on mine was a little galled in the aluminum. Seriously, why doesn't Subaru use anti-sieze? If you have the right fuel line cullet tool, removing the high pressure fuel line should be easy. If not, you can carefully use a few picks to push the collet back. The motor should now be free, so all that's left is to lift the mounts off the frame and pull the motor away from the transmission. There aren't a lot of great lift points on this engine. I used a long bolt into one of the holes for the AC compressor. And just pull the motor away from the transmission. Okay, here's the problem. There are two dowels that line the engine up to the transmission. Steel and aluminum don't really jive that well, so they tend to seize in place. Now, if only Subaru had used some sort of compound that would prevent this, like, I don't know, an anti-sieze? Seriously, does this stuff not exist in Japan? Anyway, I probably fought this for hours. I was tired of filming, so I didn't capture much. The most important thing is that I removed the intake plenum. This will have to wait for the next day, as I needed a break from it. The next day started with the delivery of gravel, and I was ready to make a fresh attempt at this engine. Now there's probably an ASE manual specifically saying not to do this, but I was ready to punch a baby in the face at this moment. This didn't come out of nowhere. I've had to do this on another Subaru before, carefully using a chisel to break the engine free from the bell housing.
Als een ouderwets herkomende zoals we daarbij voor zo'n reception.
I believe you got that, and it still sounded like Mary Jo Butterfield.
Once the engine has moved, even a little bit, it's pretty smooth sailing from here. Let's try this again. Go slow and keep checking that everything is free and nothing is getting snagged or caught. Phew, what a pain. Now this video is getting a little long, so I'm going to cut it here. I'll do another video later to cover the new clutch and reinstall. I hope this could help you out. Thank you for watching, take care, and I'll see you next time.